Thank you. Of course, much has been discussed on vulnerable groups time and again. Perhaps you may be learning every day and night to understand vulnerable groups. When you just look into arena of international law or anathema of institutional buildings, plethora of legislations have already been outspoken on the protection of human rights. If you just look into UN Charter 1945, the concept of protection of human rights nowhere defined. Please go through entire text of UN Charter 1945, wherein it has outspoken on encouragement and promotion of human rights. Kindly go through the preamble of UN Charter 1945. You will have known how exactly human rights are supposed to be promoted and encouraged all over the world. You know very well, it is because of the efforts made at UNO and its half-century enactments. We are just sitting here to understand what are the issues and challenges of human rights are concerned. When you just look into earlier history, it could be on the basis of perhaps many professors might have spoken on Magna Carta. What's there in Magna Carta? There was an agreement between King Johnson and barons. It does say, thou shalt not expel any human being unless and until there shall be a judicial pronouncement. It means that king can do no wrong is a wrong. One has to understand it. He is not above the law. He is below the law. This is what DIC has already been exposed in many platforms to understand certain restrictions to be leveled against to a king as such. Earlier history, which emphasized that king had no, restrictions. This is what Jean Bodin in his De La Republica, he says that king is unrestrained by law. No matter it was supported by Machiavelli, and it was actually questioned by Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau on the basis of their social contract theories are concerned. Since then, it has been actually one of the debatable issues at the national and international level as such. Look at ongoing crises all over the world. There are many ongoing crises all over the world. Of course, we need to have some clarifications to do. Otherwise, how can you enjoy human rights? It's very difficult to enjoy human rights are concerned. So therefore, it requires a lot of drill to understand what is to be done and what ought not to be done, especially in the field of human rights law is concerned. On the other hand, when you are just sharing few thoughts on these human rights, you have to have a look on how, in what manner, natural law philosophy in the sense that the divine law, it is not actually man-made. How exactly divine law has already been outspoken to share few thoughts on the human values. So much has been discussed on human values, no matter. If you just look into pre-constitutional measures in the sense that they could be Yagnavalkya Smriti, Manusmriti, Narada Smriti, Chanakya Niti, Kautilya's Arthashastra. All in all, perhaps you may have gone through how, in what manner these commentaries, which were actually drafted by commentators, and you know very well, we did not find any parliament to decide what is to be done. And moreover, if rather I would say church was supreme, temple was supreme, mosque was supreme, And more or less, if rather I would say, the religion was supreme in eye of law. So when the religion was supreme, people had to follow religion accordingly without any, certain reservations or commitments or interest or such other thing, however it could be. So from these observations, one has to take a note on the basis of these factors with a view to understand the protection. The internally displaced persons and refugees are concerned. Why I have come across with this topic in this session? Because in the last sessions we were just dealing with protection of human rights of women, children, orphans, LGBT, and such other thing. These are the things were actually left out while we were actually discussing on many aspects. It includes, problems and perspectives of SCs, STs, minorities, and many. If you just look into the constitutional law for this country, as I've already been made it clear in the last sessions, Constitution that itself is a suprema lex and a lex specialis. We have brought out this Constitution with you to understand how people are living over here. And you know very well, understanding Constitution is not so simple because it's not at all a drama, story, or novel as such. It requires a lot of drill to understand what is Constitution, how exactly Constitution shall be looked into. And moreover, if rather I would say, sharing the Constitution checks and balances are not so simple. Perhaps in the last class, one of the participants raised some aspects in connection to the subject matter of Article 13 of Indian Constitution, wherein it has outspoken on the concept of law. How exactly that the concept of law has been actually derived and emphasized. So that's why many theories have already been outspoken. Perhaps the people who have been actually teaching on constitutional law for this country may have been actually known. Take for an example, it could be colorable legislations, width and substance, doctrine of severability, eclipse, and rule of law. What is rule of law? Rule of law in the sense that rule according to law, no one above the law, even king also under the law of God. That is highly distinguished from a rule of jungle. What's there in a rule of jungle? Chasing, hunting, eating flesh. And you cannot direct some people, go and have green grass or leaves. They are highly, biologically differentiated. So that's why you have to understand certain categorical aspects between rule of jungle and rule of law. So that's why I must share with you, being a student of public international, in which I have gone through many allied subjects, it includes international human rights law. Why international human rights law has come across with many things. If you just open the Pandora box of international human rights law, you will have been actually known how exactly the people ought to be protected and ought to be cherish their values. I'm a human being, so I should enjoy my life. If I want to enjoy my life, I should know what are the rights of others. You know very well, when you are just sharing few thoughts on rights, duties are kept in abeyance. They're always to be rooted through on the basis of rights. Rights and duties, they are actually correlative. They should go hand in hand, two body, one soul. Sometimes you may call it as if two faces of the same coin. Harmonious construction between these two shall also be verified and looked into. I mean to say, one owes a duty towards others. That's a dharma you have. If you just open the Pandora box of any religious text, it could be Quran, Bible, Bhagavad Gita, Guru Nanak Granth, and many. you will have known how exactly dharma is inherent in the society as such. That is what even pre-constitutional measures were spoken of to understand dharma. Dharma is actually superior than others. That's why sometimes this is one of my aspects I'm just sharing with you. You cannot be a stronger by exploiting others. Sarva dharma samana concept shall also be looked into. All religions are having their own silver linings. So that one should understand. And moreover, if rather I would say, each cloud has got its own silver linings. I must share with you that a beggar has no choice. You should understand it. Beggar has no choice. So from these observations, there are as many as problems I have actually outspoken at the international level. We need to have some clarifications. We need to have some conflict resolutions. Without conflict resolution, how can you resolve some disputes between states themselves? Look at word hunger is quite common all over the world. Word hunger, poverty, global warming, terrorism. It could be counter-terrorism, cross-border terrorism, state terrorism, cyber terrorism, bioterrorism, and many. Terrorism has got many outlooks. How do you overcome terrorism? There is a lot of scope to understand terrorism as such. Look at Yemen civil war, Syrian civil war, Libyan civil war, Israeli and Palestine conflicts. They are quarreling each other to separate Jerusalem. Who are there in Jerusalem? You find Christians and Muslims. Palestine wants Christians, whereas in case of Israel wants Muslims. They want to separate them into two pieces. It is because of religious fundamentalisms. Why I'm just sharing all these parameters. However, you might have gone through some of the state legislations or regional conventions or international covenants, which are highly expressive to understand promotion and encouragement of human rights and fundamental freedoms without distinction with race, sex, language, and religion as such. Perhaps we may have gone to as many as specific legislations to understand human rights. I agree with you. I'm not disputing with you. No matter. Look at when it comes to the knowledge of these crises, that ongoing crisis all over the world. Do you have some sound specific legislations? What else you want? Do you want some more international covenants? Do you need some more international regional conventions like European Convention on Human Rights? Look at Organization of American States, Organization of African Union, SARC you have. As many as agencies have been putting their efforts to overcome flagrant violation of human rights all over the world. I agree with them. I'm not at all disputing. Look at the situations like religious fundamentalism or fanatism. It is because of religious fundamentalism or fanatism. Ongoing crises are actually answerable to your queries. So that's why something has to be looked upon. And you know very well, as we have already been discussed in the last discourses, by saying that there shall be some action plans to overcome. Yes, I agree with you, 100%. I agree with you. However, it requires a lot of drill to understand these values of a human being are concerned. Look at Ukrainian crisis, then Korean conflict is remained. COVID outbreak 2020, then cultural genocide of Rohingya. So these are the ongoing crises.
Sorry for interference.
Yeah.
ಇದು PPT ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. PPT
ಇಲ್ಲ ಇನ್ನೂ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ನಾನು.
ಹೌದಾ?
Still I mean introductory part. I am just
sorry sir.
ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಈ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಫೈಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಯೂಟ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ, ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಇನ್ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ, in which I have roamed entire Karnataka to study the problems of internally displaced persons and refugees as well. I have visited even Bailkuppe, Mundugod, then very close to Chamradnagar, where you find lots of refugees. They are highly vulnerable. Look at internally displaced persons, especially in the places where you find Siddhi community people. They could be Hindu Siddhi, Muslim Siddhi or Christian Siddhi. ನಾನು ಯಾಕೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ರಿಲಿಜನ್ ಇಂದ ಎಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಈಗ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ರಿಲಿಜನ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ರಿಲಿಜನ್ ಇದೆ pathway to realize the God, isn't it? And moreover, if rather I would say, it's a belief of faith in your own God, but in the name of religion, you are targeting many people. ಈಗ ನಾನು ಸರ್ವೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇನೆ ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ 15 days ಬ್ಯಾಕ್. ಕಾರವಾರ, ದೆನ್ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಉತ್ತರ ಕನ್ನಡ ಡಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋದಾಗ, ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಯಲ್ಲಾಪುರದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾನು ಹೋದಾಗ ತುಂಬಾ ಥಿಕ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಸಿದ್ಧಿ ಜನಾಂಗ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆಫ್ರಿಕಾದಿಂದ ಬಂದಿರೋದು, ನಿಮ್ಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಿಂದೂ ಜನಾಂಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋರು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಿಂದೂ ಸಿದ್ಧಿ ಆದ್ರು, ಮರ ಅಥವಾ ಕಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಕಡಿಯೋರೆಲ್ಲ ಹೋಗಿ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಮ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಏನ್ ಒಡನಾಡಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರು ಹೋಗಿ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಸಿದ್ಧಿ ಆದ್ರು. ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ ಸಿದ್ಧಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಕನ್ವರ್ಷನ್. ಸೊ ಹಿಂಗೆಲ್ಲ ಪರ್ವರ್ಷನ್ ಇದಾವೆ. ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬಿಫೋರ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಡೀಲ್ ವಿತ್ these aspects, it would be pertinent to share few thoughts on how religion has created hell on us. That's one of the major aspects to be looked into, and how, in what manner the conversion which has outspoken here and there, although we have had anti-conversion laws country like India as such. So these are the perceptions which shall also be looked upon when it comes to the knowledge of these the vulnerable groups like internally displaced persons and refugees are concerned. Of course, it requires a lot of drill. When you are just sharing few thoughts on internally displaced persons, even today in India, we are not finding any sound specific legislations which are addressing the problems of internally displaced persons. Except Article 21 of Indian Constitution, no law is there to protect, promote, and encourage human rights of internally displaced persons. Thanks to United Nations organization, by appointing Francis Deng of Sudan, who was actually appointed by Secretary General of United Nations to study the problems of IDP all over the world. He roamed many places, many countries, to find out how many internally displaced persons are there on this earth planet. One fine day, I mean to say in 1998, he came across with guiding principles on internally displaced persons. That is the only one document we have at the international level as such. There are no binding rules which are addressing some of the issues and challenges of internally displaced persons, not only in India, cutting across the world. If you just look into any website, you will never ever find any agreement or an international convention which are addressing the issues of internally displaced persons are concerned. At least you can find some protections to refugees. You have a Refugee Status Convention 1951 and 1967 protocol you have. Whereas in case of IDP, internally displaced person, we are not finding sound specific legislations which are addressing the issues of these people. If you just look into statistics of IDP, in Syria, we have 7.6 million people. Cambodia, 6 million. Iraq, 3.6 million. Democratic Republic of Congo, 2.8 million. Sudan, 2.2 million. South Sudan, 1.9 million. Nigeria, 1.2 million. Pakistan, 1.4 million. Somalia, 1.1 million. These are the statistics we have. So how do you overcome these problems? So where exactly you can find some specific legislations to be outspoken. So in this context, understanding IDP and refugees counts a lot. Of course, it requires a lot of detail to understand these. It is because of forced and obliged situations, people have been actually leaving their vicinity to in search of the place where exactly it would be helpful. So that's why. And moreover, if rather I would say, displacement can be found from two systems. Number one, internal displacement and internationally displaced persons. Internally displaced persons and internationally displaced persons are. These are the two major aspects that shall be looked upon when it comes to the knowledge of displacement of the people all over the world as such. See here, when you are just sharing few thoughts on internal displacement, internally displaced persons are not supposed to cross their borders. They are supposed to be lived within the limits of a country as such. Once they have crossed their international border or a national border, they will be called as if refugees in some other countries are concerned. So there you will be finding conduit answers in connection to the subject matter of internally displaced persons and internationally displaced persons are concerned. Internationally displaced persons are nothing but refugees, vagabonds, vice, deported people might be there. So I'll be restricted to internal displacement and refugee crisis as well. So very well, these people would be remain within the borders of their country, and they are not supposed to cross their international borders are concerned. And very well, there is no universal or legally binding instrument, as I said, except guiding principles on the protection of internally displaced persons as drafted by Francis Deng of Sudan, who was actually appointed by Secretary General of United Nations. You are not finding any universally or legally binding instrument which are in fact dealing with internally displaced persons are concerned. So we need to have some specific legislation which are addressing these issues are concerned. However, there are some indirect applications to understand the problems of IDP. Look at 4th Geneva Convention, 1949. Especially Article 44, 45, 49, and 70. They deal with IDP, but they're all actually general class, and they're not particular in understanding problems of IDP as such. We have protocol 1 additional to the Geneva Convention 1977. You have protocol 2nd additional to the Geneva Convention 1977. The Rome Statute of International Criminal Court 1998. We have then African Union Convention for the protection and assistance of internally displaced persons in Africa shall be called as if Kampala Convention of 2009 are concerned. These are the general classes we have with a view to understand IDP all over the world as such. This is one of my hypotheses one has to understand. See, displacement is a political and a social problem. Yes, I agree with you, no matter. Of course, which strengthens its institutional capacity. Obviously, there are some cases or what shall I say, tentative solutions to overcome. Of course, it requires many things to be looked upon to understand how exactly these people like internally displaced persons should be rehabilitated. That's very, very important. So once they have been actually fled their home states or the places, obviously rehabilitation should be made available. That's what Article 32 of the Constitution of India shall be looked into. You know very well, Article 32, that itself is the heart of the Constitution, in which Baba Sahib Ambedkar has already been made clear to understand the constitutional goals or values are concerned. So that's why a right to remedy, that itself is a fundamental right. So without which other rights cannot be enjoyable. It should be called as if a primordial right. This is what I have gone through it. Moreover, comprehensive national policy for IDP in consultation with the displacement persons, NGO, intergovernmental organizations. See, when you look into some of the issues all over the world, nothing has been done so far. I mean to say, no consultation has been made so far. Till now, although we have had 73rd and 74th Amendment of the Constitution of India, wherein they have given some powers to the local bodies. If something has gone wrong by anybody, you have to take appropriate measures through local bodies. But that has not been actually successful country like India. This is one of the major issues we have. See, it is because of mega projects issued by the central government or the dam construction or something else. It is because of developmental activities, people are going to be displaced. So therefore, it requires a lot of drill to understand these people, and moreover, adequate representation should be given to the people who are living over there. Otherwise, everything would be bulldozed within no time access. So that's why proper enforcement mechanisms, the principles in which you are witnessing at the international level, shall also be verified once again. If they are highly complementary and supplementary in nature, kindly follow them at the municipal level as such. I mean to say, mere signatory to these conventions are not sufficient. There shall be a ratification of international agreements. This is what Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties 1969 has already been outspoken at the international level as such. So how will you adapt these principles at the municipal level? It requires a lot of drill, and moreover, you know very well, better than me, Article 253 of the Constitution, wherein it has outspoken on constitutional validity of public international law. So how, in what manner international goals shall be adapted at the municipal level? This has to be looked into. Otherwise, how can you understand the transformation of international human rights law into the municipal laws? It requires a lot of drill, and it is left to the parliament to decide what is to be done and what ought not to be done as such. This is what one of the cases has already been expressed by Supreme Court of India, wherein in Manual versus Union of India, where it has been outspoken by saying that ratification of treaty is an executive act. So one has to understand, on the basis of ratification, you can adapt such kind of principles at the municipal level to overcome problems of these vulnerable groups who are living here and there. It has long been a neglected area in disaster responses. We have got many specific legislations which are addressing disaster management. Look at disaster management Act 2005 and Forest Dwellers Act 2006, then Biodiversity Act 2002, and such other things. There are so many legislations that have already been outspoken to understand all these. However, it requires certain measures to be taken into note of. Otherwise, these problems will be remained as it is. As long as you are dealing with IDP all over the world, I must share with you, the International Rescue Committee has assessed the countries at greatest risk of a humanitarian crisis in 2020 as such. The conflicts and instability in Central African Republic continue to drive displacement and food insecurity. At 2.6 million people, more than half of the country's population require humanitarian assistance. Over a quarter of all Central Africans have been actually forced to leave their homes. More than 6 lakh people have been internally displaced, while a further 6 lakh have fled to neighboring countries. Around 33% of the population are experienced critical levels of food insecurity in Central Republic as such. Apart from this, especially in Somalia, as you have already been witnessed. So it has been persistent instability and conflict since 1991. So more than 5 million Somalis, I mean to say over 40% of the population of Somalia, needs some form of humanitarian assistance. Over 1 million face crisis levels of food insecurity. Conflict has driven 740,000 Somalis to nearby countries, and a further of 2.6 million people are displaced within the country as such. If you just look into statistics, you will be wonder how exactly the displacement is actually taking place all over the world as such. So not only in African Republic and Somalia, have a look on South Sudan. Civil conflict in South Sudan has killed almost 4 lakh people since 2013 as such. 7.5 million people need humanitarian assistance. The crisis has actually created 2.2 million refugees and displaced 1.5 million inside the country as such. Not only here, you just have a look on Afghanistan, very recent. It is because of Taliban. People have been actually displaced to other countries are concerned. So that's why we require some action plans to work on. So how long you should keep these problems? There shall be something. I mean to say that through action plan, you have to work on. Otherwise, it's very difficult to understand the problems of IDP all over the world as such. Look at even in Venezuela, Nigeria, Syria, then Democratic Republic of Congo, Yemen, all these institutions, highly, expressive. And you talk many things on UDHR, ICCPR, and then International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Culture, right? 1966, we have action plans. See, you talk many things on the basis of certain developments that are taken place to promote, increase, protect human rights of these vulnerable groups. I agree with you, no matter. When you just look into these statistics, you'll be wondered, astonishing. So that's why something has to be looked upon to understand these principles are concerned, which were actually drafted by Francis Deng of Sudan as such. So these are the rights could be enjoyed. Perhaps we may have gone through all these rights. I'll just go through some of the research questions in which I have gone through. So which group can be considered as internally displaced person? when you are just understanding internal displaced person, it is highly politicized issue. Sometimes religious fundamentalisms would be finding when you are just sharing few aspects in connection to the subject matter of internally displaced persons are concerned. So these are the rhetoric questions you have, incidental questions you have, or accidental questions you have. So you have to understand through which how exactly internally displaced persons should be protected and promoted. Look at which group can be considered as internally displaced person. Is there any difference between refugees and internally displaced persons? Yes, there is a difference between internally displaced persons and the refugees. And what are the reasons for displacement? There are many reasons for displacement. I'll go through it. And who is responsible for protection of displaced persons?
14 sir, 14 ಇದು ಒಂದು ಈ ತರ 14 ಇದೆ. Very good.
Lalita Bai,
Yes sir.
Can you please mute yourself? Yeah, thank you. Whether displacement should be limited only to conflict situation, you have to think. Then what are the remedies available to the displaced persons? Which law is applicable to protect internal displaced persons? Are they legally protected? Whether the respective national governments have made any concrete policies to address the problems of displaced persons, and what are steps taken by national, regional governments to ensure the rights of IDP. These are the fundamental questions shall be asked when you are researching on internally displaced persons, through which we can conduct a serious research on internally displaced persons are concerned. Look at, especially in Karnataka, we have many people who have been actually displaced. They could be the people who are actually belonging to Soliga community. Soliga, Yarava, Jenu Kuruba, Kadu Kuruba, Bettada Kuruba, Siddhi community. So these are the people who have been actually displaced due to strong issues which were raised by forest department is concerned, and some of them have got some rehabilitation aspects, but others are actually highly vulnerable. At least for them law shall be made available. If you just visit some places, especially in Karnataka, as I have already been visited, especially in Anemala, very close to Bali, and or Kerala border, or else you can visit BR Hills, or else you can visit where the people are displaced in some places like Yellapur, then Nagarhole, Bandipur, elsewhere in Ankola. Very recently, I could visit the places where you can find the displaced people. They are highly vulnerable. Even today, they are not accessible to have some amenities like electricity supply, water, sanitation, roads. No schools are there to give an education. You talk many things on right to education. Where is right to education? If you are just sharing few thoughts on IDP here and there, ಯಾವ ಸ್ಕೂಲಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಟೀಚರ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದನೋ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಕೂರ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಜಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅಂತ ಸ್ಥಿತಿ ನೀವು ಈ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು. ನೀವು ಹೋಗಿ ನೋಡಿ, BR Hills ಅಲ್ಲೇ ನೋಡಿ, BR Hills, then very close to Bavali, ಕೇರಳ. ಆ ಕಡೆ ಕೇರಳ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಖುಷಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಜನರು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ they are highly vulnerable even today. Of course, government is actually putting its efforts to do, but it's not actually reachable to their expectations. So that's why it requires a lot of drill to understand the problems of the IDP who have been actually left their vicinity, living somewhere. These are the major issues we have when it comes to the knowledge of IDP as such. Issues involved and causes within the guiding principles. So it is because of armed conflict, situations of generalized violence, the human rights violations, natural and man-made disasters, people have been actually displacing from one place to another place. If something has gone wrong, obviously that's a human tendency. Earlier, what had happened? We did not find any visa passport to visit some other country. We did not find any boundary. When you just look into Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or India, we did not find any boundaries earlier. When partition took place, people were actually displaced from one place to another place. Obviously, if something has gone wrong to any human being, obviously they have to displace from one place to another place as such. And this is one of the responsibilities on the part of a state to render justice to these people, in which I have already been made clear in the last classes, that the access to justice is one among human rights. The poverty that itself is a violation of human rights. This is what many scholars have already been addressed at the higher level. I agree with them, no matter. However, when it comes to the knowledge of these vulnerable groups, something has to be looked upon. You have to give voice to the voiceless, eyes to the eyesless, and they have to share their sorrow with us, through which we can render justice to these. That's why I must share with you on the basis of these choices. You have to give certain choices to these people. ನಾನು ನೋಡಿದಾಗೆ ಏನು ಬಂಡೀಪುರ, ನಾಗರಹೊಳೆ, ಬಿಆರ್ ಹಿಲ್ಸ್, ಇನ್ನು ಅಂಕೋಲಾ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಡಿಸ್ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿದಾರಲ್ಲ, ಇವತ್ತಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಅವರ ಸ್ವಂತ ಮನೆ ದೇವರನ್ನ ಪೂಜೆ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇಲ್ದಂಗೆ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಈಗ ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಿ ರೈಟ್ ಟು ಫ್ರೀಡಮ್ ಆಫ್ ರಿಲಿಜನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಿ, ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 25 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫ್ರೀಡಮ್ ಆಫ್ ವರ್ಷಿಪ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಲ್ಲ. Look at these situations. Even today, they are unable to meet their concern. It's very difficult. They are highly vulnerable if they are marginalized, weaker, and retracted from the holistic and integrated society as a whole. If you have come across with all these things are concerned. So that's why something has to be looked upon. We need to have some action plan to overcome these internally displaced persons are concerned. However, there are some measures which are highly expressive under international human rights law, international humanitarian law, international criminal law, and guiding principles. These are the routes we have to protect, promote, and encourage the human rights of internally displaced persons are concerned. You know very well international human rights law. There are so many international covenants have been actually outspoken generally. You see, they are also human beings like us. They can also enjoy civil, political, economic, social, cultural rights, what not. Yes, I agree with them. No matter, right to life, liberty, fraternity, all these things are there. They can also enjoy on the basis of these factors. When we were just understanding civil and political rights, of course, no matter. However, it could be at the international level, many steps were actually taken place to draft UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. Thanks to Lionel Roosevelt, John Humphrey of Canada, Rene of France. These were the people, while they were having cup of tea in New York, they expressed to have some 30 articles for the survival of human being all over the world. It was because of efforts made by these three legal luminaries, we were able to find UDHR at the international level as such. John Humphrey of Canada, who could draft first draft on the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Thanks to John Humphrey of Canada, Rene of France, and Roosevelt of the United States of America. They were able to draft 30 articles which are actually dealing with almost all the civilians all over the world as such. So that's why these people are supposed to be protected, promoted, and encouraged their human rights are concerned. On the other hand, while we are dealing with international humanitarian law, we have Geneva Conventions, 1949. In 1949, 4 main Geneva Conventions concluded with a view to understand IDP. Also, along with the continuity of these, we have additional protocols 1 and 2, which were actually emphasized in 1977 as such. Along with the continuity of these, there are some more specific legislations which are highly expressive through Rome Statute 1998. Rome Statute 1998, which was actually culminated on the basis of earlier history, like International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia and the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. So it was because of these local tribunals we were able to draft Rome Statute 1998 as such. So through which we have given some powers to ICC, that's the International Criminal Court, when there is genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, or crimes against peace. Under these circumstances, ICC can punish on the basis of ad punere and ad vedere. It means no serious criminals shall not go unpunished. They should be prosecuted mercilessly before honorable ICC as such, International Criminal Court as such. So these are the routes we have to protect, promote, and encourage the human rights of IDP all over the world as such. So these are the guideline principles which cover all the phases of displacement. The pre-displacement phase, providing protection of unlawful displacement, protection and assistance in during displacement. We have some durable solutions, namely return, local integration at the place of displacement, resettlement in another part of the country, and reintegration. So how in what manner you are going to understand durable solutions and resettlements? When you just look into some of the issues and challenges, especially a country like India, nothing has been done so far in order to understand durable solutions and resettlements are concerned. The governments have already been fed. So with a view to meet the needs of the IDP country like India as such. So this could happen. ನಿಮಗೆ ಹೆಚ್ಡಿ ಕೋಟೆ ಪಕ್ಕ ಒಂದು ಹಳ್ಳಿ ಇದೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಹೋಗಿದ್ದೆ. ಬಸವನಗಿರಿ ಅಂತ, ಬಸವನಗಿರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ 2 ಸೆಟಲ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇದೆ. ಆ ಸೆಟಲ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇವತ್ತಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅವಕಾಶಗಳನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದು ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಏನಾಯ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಅಪೀಲ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅವರು ನೋಟಿಸ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಗೆ, ಯಾಕೆ ನೀವು ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ಆ ಡ್ಯೂರಬಲ್ ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ರೀಸೆಟಲ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ತಕ್ಷಣ. ಸೊ ಅವಾಗ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಪ್ರತಿ ಒಂದು ಕುಟುಂಬಕ್ಕೆ 2 ಎಕರೆ ಜಮೀನನ್ನ ಇತ್ತೀಚೆಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇತ್ತೀಚೆಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಬಂದಿರೋರು ಬಂಡೀಪುರ ಕಾಡಿಂದ ಹೊರಗೆ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದವರು, ಯಾವಾಗ ಈಗ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್ ಆಯ್ತಲ್ಲ ಅವಾಗ ಹೊರಗೆ ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ರು. ಸೊ these are the issues we have, no matter when it comes to the knowledge of these vulnerable groups are concerned. So that's why we need to have some action plan to work on. And so family separation is quite common, and the loss of documentation, sometimes freedom of movement and in out of camps, and the loss of property. They are going to lose everything when there are some dam constructions. This could happen, especially Damodar Valley projects, Terry projects, and even in constructing, KRS, many people were actually displaced to other places. Even today, they are not actually getting some amenities from the government as such. So government is very silent. We don't know why the government is very silent with you to understand that these vulnerable groups are concerned. That's why we require some, the protections. Otherwise, how can I share few thoughts on, their physical security, integrity, right to life, protection from torture, rape, basic necessities of life, other economic, social, cultural protection, and access to education, property, restitution, compensation, civil, political, documentation, political participation. All in all, we talk many things. Look at 73rd and 74th amendments of the Constitution of India. You have given some powers to local self-government, but there is a failure on the part of local self-government to resist certain mega projects issued by the central governments are concerned. Central government is concerned. That's why it requires a lot of aspects to do when it comes to the knowledge of rejuvenating the rights of these vulnerable groups at the local level as such. They'll find out someone tomorrow. They'll come with all bags and baggages and say, "This is my area. You cannot enter." So all these things are there, especially in the place where these forest dwellers are living. Look at it is highly contradictory and contrary when it comes to the knowledge of the protection of Forest Dwellers Act 2006 and Protection of Biodiversity Act 2002. As these were the acts passed by the Parliament. While they were actually passing these two legislations, they would have actually thought over the problems of a forest dwellers country like India. So nothing has been done so far. It's really pathetic country like India as such. So that's why something has to be looked upon, and we need to have some clarifications while you are just dealing with these two main acts are concerned. See, we are 5 million people internally displaced in India in 2019. This is what UN has already been given you some inputs to understand all these. This is quite common, especially in India, Philippines, Bangladesh, China as such. So internally displaced persons are concentrated. Look at especially in the Middle East and North Africa and West Central Africa. The Middle East, North Africa recorded over 12 million IDP as a result of conflict and violence at the end of 2019. Almost all of them lived in just 3 countries: Syria, Yemen, Iraq, and around 5 million were actually children. So this is what, when it comes to the knowledge of IDP, women and children are going to be targeted. They are going to be sexually abused and targeted. So these are the major issues we have. Obviously, there shall be some action plans to be shared by United Nations organization to understand the problems of these vulnerable groups are concerned. This is what we have many statistics to understand IDP as such. We have constitutional measures when it comes to the knowledge of India's position. Like in Olga Telly's Bombay Municipal Corporation, where Supreme Court of India has already been outspoken by saying that the Article 21, right to life, has to be looked into. This was actually questioned by the Bombay pavement dwellers. They argued that the construction of an expressway would destroy both their homes and workplaces are concerned. Obviously, they do have their own rights to resist at the higher level, no matter. However, it requires to understand on the basis of a right to adequate shelter. In the same way, their right to life shall also be cherished. Look, when it comes to the knowledge of Narmada Bachao Andolan versus Union of India, or else Sardar Sarovar projects and Terry Dam projects. So it is because of these mega projects, please, these IDP are going to be displaced to some other places are concerned. So that's why something has to be looked into on the basis of these aspects are concerned. This has happened, especially in Jammu and Kashmir. See, on the basis of my own project, I had an opportunity to visit some places in J&K. I could find some IDP. It was because of serious issues which were raised in Kashmir Valley. 280,000 pandits, 280,000 pandits, they actually migrated to Jammu, staying in my Jammu. It is because of wage earning employment they are living. Otherwise, their issues are actually highly vulnerable even today. No rehabilitation has been made by the central government to understand the problems of these pandits who are actually migrated from Kashmir Valley to Jammu as such. We have, of course, no doubt, in India, we have a 7 lakh internally displaced person. Especially in Jammu, you are witnessing a 280,000 people are concerned. They are highly vulnerable even today. The Naxalite violence and the displacement in India, especially in Assam, Mizoram, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Chhattisgarh, all in all, we are witnessing, Naxalite violence and the displacement country like India as such. This is really quite common in some places, so you can witness that. There are some international institutions in which they have set up to understand IDP. We have an International Committee of the Red Cross, International Organization for Migration, World Health Organization, you have United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. So the fact that UNHCR is not at all dealing with IDP, with a view to find out how many refugees are living over there, they are seriously conducting a few research work on IDP as such. So only thing is that they have to find out refugees. Who are all the refugees? They are segregating, IDP. So of course, these are the institutions which have actually set up to understand the problems of IDP as such. They could be International Committee of Red Cross, International Organization for Migration, the World Health Organization, United Nations High Commissioner for the Refugees. These are the institutions have set up to understand internally displaced persons are concerned. Some NGOs are also involved, especially during COVID-19. Displacement was actually quite common due to travel restrictions, curfews, and many other restrictions. People started, displacing from one place to another place to lead their life. If something has gone wrong, obviously you have to find out some ways to lead your life. That is all about. Earlier, what had happened? If you just look into earlier history, we did not find any boundaries between states themselves. People were actually migrating from one place to another place. The human migration is inherent in the society as a whole. Human migration is inherent in the society as a whole. So that's why we need to have some aspects to understand displacement of the people all over the world as such. The family internal displacement by ISL, you know very well, especially in Iraq. This is quite common. Likewise, Afghanistan, very recent. Myanmar, elsewhere in Yemen, elsewhere in South Korea, North Korea, Iran and Iraq. Obviously, people are displacing due to some armed conflicts, due to some earthquakes, due to some natural calamities, or it is because of some man-made crisis. People have been actually displacing from one place to another place to lead their life as such. Earlier, what had happened? We did not find all these boundaries. We did not find any restrictions, travel restrictions. People were traveling from one place to another place as such. Now you have got restrictions. It is because of security measures in each state as such. So that's why one has to understand on the basis of these factors are concerned. I must share with you, all rights which are guaranteed to IDP are not absolute. subject to certain limitations that you have to understand on the basis of a security measures in which they have outspoken at the international level as such. So means of protection. So protection through humanitarian crisis, assistance, then engaging in more proactive protection strategies, providing protection in safe areas, protection through evacuation and the protection upon return, resettlement and reintegration. Till now, if you just look into some of the glaring examples, especially in Karnataka, so whatever we are just sharing, they are just looking as if paper tigers roaring there and there itself. And see, no governments are actually helpful to protect the interests of these people are concerned. They are highly vulnerable. Even today, they are living in a thick forest. They are not accessible to have some amenities like right to life, liberty, fraternity, right to education, freedom of speech and expression. Sometimes, even if they want to express something, they will be threatened by the forest officials are concerned. So highly marginalized even today. So although we have had many specific legislations which are addressed at the national and international level as such. And some say that guiding principles on the protection of IDP, that itself is a soft law which cannot be enforceable before honorable courts. Yes, I agree with you. In absence of a hard law, then the soft law will play an important role. So equity shall be looked into. What is equity? See, equity that itself is a spirit of the law. Now, your law is a hardcore subject, whereas in case of equity is a soft core subject. Please understand how, in what manner you are understanding soft law and a hard law as such. They should go hand in hand when it comes to the knowledge of protection of human rights of these vulnerable groups are concerned. That is all about your academic work. See, when you are just sharing few thoughts on a soft law and hard law, even between fundamental rights or direct principles of state policies. Yes, of course, no matter they are supposed to be called as if hard and soft measures. However, when a person who is actually standing before the court of law is a human being, so he has come over here to understand his problem. Justice should be catered. The access to justice is one among human rights. This is what Krishna has already been acknowledged in many cases. Yes, I agree with you. No matter. And fruits of justice should be shared to the people who are left out in the society as a whole. They could be political justice, economic or social justice as such. Social justice shall also be upheld, and it is one of the responsibilities on the part of a government should render. You know very well, draft articles on state responsibilities for international wrongful acts are concerned. 2001, which was drafted by 5 special rapporteurs of International Law Commission, shall also be looked into. If a state violates an international obligations, then the state responsibility would come into picture as such. That's what I said in the last classes. If a child is crying at home, that the mother should know why child is crying. That's most important. Otherwise, how can I understand all these rights are concerned? You talk many things on these rights. I agree with you. When it comes to the knowledge of these groups, empirically or doctrinally, you will have known how people are actually thrown out from this integrated or holistic society as such. So this is also one of the cases which has come across with some of the aspects like in Vellore Citizen Welfare Forum versus Union of India, and in MC Mehta versus Union of India, it was observed that the balance between environmental protection and developmental activities could only be maintained by strictly following the principle of sustainable development. Yes, I agree with you. There are so many aspects have been actually outspoken on preservation of a human environment. No matter, protection and preservation of human environment is a matter of acceptability and survival of our system. I agree with you. That's why as many as developments that are taken place at the international level. We have Stockholm Declaration 1972, Rio de Janeiro Declaration 1992, Earth Summits you have, Cancun Declaration you have, then you have a Doha Declaration, you have Cartagena Declaration, you have Nagoya Protocol. All in all, we have those which are emphasized on the basic principles of international environmental law. I agree with you. They could be polluter pays principle, sustainable development, intergenerational equity, common but differentiated responsibility, benefit sharing, then common concern of humanity. All in all, we have, no matter. So how can you understand right to development and what shall I say, the preservation of human environment? So these are the things which shall also be looked into. Look at certain steps which are taken into note of on the basis of right to development. Especially in 1986, Declaration on Right to Development came into force. So it took almost 2 decades to understand what is right to development. So when you have given more importance to right to development, environment will be collapsed. That's why we have to balance the interest between right to development and the preservation of a human environment. This has come through on the basis of these factors are concerned. On the other hand, as long as you are dealing with these, you have to understand, millennium developmental goals, which were highly expressed in 2002, and later on in 2015, in fact, United Nations Organization came across with sustainable developmental goals, 2015 to 2030. Look at how exactly these goals are highly helpful to overcome the problems of IDP all over the world as such. So these are the developments that are taken place at the international level to sustain, the rights of these vulnerable groups are concerned. So according to Nobel Prize winner Amartya Sen, he says, the issue of development cannot be separated from the conceptual framework of the human right as such. So when you have gone through right to development, obviously you have to understand human rights are concerned. He says, what is right to development? Right to development is nothing but economic development, well-being of people. I agree with him, no matter. However, it requires a lot of drill to understand your human rights on par with the right to development as such. That's why look at when you are just sharing on IDP, it is because of dam constructions and mega projects issued by the central government. People have been actually displacing from one place to another place. This has been estimated by many aspects. Look at a Central Water Commission, which has got some data. We just have a look on 3,600 dams that qualify a big dams, 3,300 of them being actually built after independence. 695 more are actually under construction. These are the data we have when it comes to the knowledge of the mega projects issued by the central government assets. My observation is very simple. When you're just sharing with the IDP all over the world, any developmental activities should be looked on the basis of a rehabilitation process. Adequate rehabilitation should be made available once you have gone through right to development or the developmental activities which can be emphasized by the central government as such. So that's why many things have been actually outspoken. See, after having gone through IDP, understanding refugees comes a lot. Who is a refugee? A refugee is a person who has been actually fled his home country due to well-founded fear and persecution. This is what Article 3 of a Refugee Status Convention 1951 has already been outspoken. Here, when you're just comparing with IDP, obviously, internal displaced persons are not finding sound specific legislations. Whereas in case of refugees, at least they may find certain protections at the international level. As take for an example, you have UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugee, which has been actually giving more importance to refugee crisis all over the world. As such. In India, we have Chakmas, we have Tibetans, we have Bhutanese, Burmese, Iranians, both, and then Ugandans. All in all, we have. It was because of some issues occurred in their home countries. They flown over to India, settling here in India. Such, of course, no matter. India is not one of the member countries of Refugee Status Convention 1951 and 1967 protocol as such. However, it is because of certain international obligations. You know very well that UNHCR has put up in Delhi. UNHCR is one of the specialized agencies of United Nations organization. It is because of that obligations we are just protecting, promoting, and encouraging human rights of refugees country like India as such. So, and you can put a fundamental question: why do refugees need protection? Yes, they are also human beings. My answer is very simple. Is the 1951 convention still relevant in today's world? Yes, it is relevant. And is refugee protection permanent? No, temporary. It's not permanent. Protection as such. It's a temporary. Look at 1951 convention as such, which has outspoken on temporary protection of the refugees all over the world as such. Does a refugee also have obligations? Yes, he has to respect the law of the land. Once he has been actually settled somewhere, that's his duty to respect the law of the land. Look at, we have Chakmas in India, Tibetans in India, Burmese in India, Ugandans are there, Bhutanese, Nepalese, all in all we have. They are not above the law. They should understand local legislations, or they have to respect the integrity of this nation. Otherwise, they would be expelled as far as Article 33, paragraph 2 of the Refugee Status Convention 1951 as such. So these are the few questions shall be asked whenever you want to go for sharing a few thoughts on refugees are concerned. I must share with you, as long as you are just dealing with internally displaced persons and refugees, so one and the same, I agree with you. But the fact that the conditions which are stipulated between states are quite demanding. There you have to find out certain distinctions between internal displaced persons and the refugees. Internal displaced persons are the people who have been actually displaced within the limits of the municipal law or national law or the country as such. Whereas in case of international displaced persons are to be called as if refugees are concerned. So these are the two dichotomies you can find between internally displaced persons and the refugees all over the world as such. So how does the UNHCR assist states to protect refugees? Yes, by promoting access to or implementation of refugees conventions and laws. You have a Refugee Status Convention 1951 and Protocol 1967. These are the two main laws are there to protect, promote, and encourage human rights of refugees all over the world. Especially in India, we are not finding any specific legislation which is dealing with the protection of refugees, except Foreigners Act 1946 as such, except Foreigners Act 1946. So, in ensuring that refugees are treated in accordance with the internationally recognized legal standards. So, these are the steps shall be taken by UNHCR. And refugee convention protocols cover three main subjects. Look at, they deal with basic, refugee definition. Who is a refugee? Who is a refugee? Refugee is a person who has been actually fled his home country due to a well-founded fear and persecution. But that definition is redundant. It is because of economic migration as such. Economic migration. Economic migration is quite common in these days. So that's why the definition which has been actually given under Article 3 of the Refugee Status Convention should be redefined once again on the basis of a preponderant interest of the just society as such. Look at the legal status of refugees in their country of asylum, their rights and obligations, including right to be protected against forcible return or refoulement or to territory where their lives and freedoms would be threatened. You know very well, asylum. Asylum is nothing but an active protection or shelter to be given to a refugee who has been actually fled from other country as such. So asylum, it could be territorial or extraterritorial asylum. This is what we have already been understood while we were just reading and writing on public international from different dimensions are concerned. So these are the things that shall also be looked upon. Yes, of course, this convention has covered even on seeking asylum message. On the other hand, states' obligations, including cooperation. This is one of the responsibilities on the part of a state to render justice to these people. This is what you have to understand the dharma, which is highly expressive at the international level as such. The one was duty towards others. I mean to say that states are not actually living alone. They are living with other nations. So this has to be looked into. And moreover, you have to understand public international law here. What is public international law? Public international law is nothing but body of rules and principles which regulates members of international community as a whole. So in this context, understanding the international obligations at the higher level is to be looked into, and almost all these parameters are overemphasized under this convention as such. I mean, the Refugee Status Convention 1951 as such. And it has got some auto limitation theory. So see, it ceases to apply any person who has actually voluntarily availed himself of the protection of a country of his nationality, having lost his nationality, has acquired a new nationality, who has voluntarily resettled himself in the country, and then organs, agents of UN other than UNSCR. So these are the restrictions we are just finding under this convention as such. You have to just go through it. And there is one more principle of great potency that has to be looked into. This is what received under Article 33 of the Refugee Status Convention 1951, wherein it has outspoken on forcible return or refoulement. Refoulement is not an English word; it's a Latin word. Refoulement. Refoul means expel. Non-refoulement means not to expel. You cannot expel. This is one of the weapons in the hands of a refugee as such. See, no contracting state shall expel or return, I mean, refouler, a refugee in any manner whatsoever to the frontier of territories where his or life, freedom or would be threatened, or an account of his race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social or group or political opinion. See, non-refoulement is one of the weapons in the hands of a refugee circles. They can enjoy all over the world as such. Look at Article 14 of UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which talks about right to asylum. See, right to seek asylum is a matter of right, as far as Article 14 of the UDHR as such, Universal Declaration of Human Rights as such. But the fact that as of now, that article has got many crises all over the world as such. And many states are actually ignoring the Article 14 of the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, due to some reasons are concerned. Due to some reasons, in the sense that kindly have a look on Article 33, paragraph 2 of the Refugee Status Convention, which talks about certain restrictions leveled against to refugee as such. See, in cases of a serious threat to the national security of the host country, or in cases where their proven or grave criminal records constitute a continuing danger to the community, under such circumstances, any refugee, whoever might have committed a wrong against to the security of the state, territorial integrity, or political independence of the state, can be expelled within no time. So while you're expelling them, so adequate security shall be given. That's all about your human rights. I agree with you. This could happen, especially in Rohingya, Myanmar, refugees are concerned. So while you are actually expelling them, adequate security shall be given to the people. Otherwise, there will be chance to have violation of the human rights of these people are concerned. So what kind of action plans you would be expecting? So these are the action plans. Something should be looked into. I must share with you, being a student of law, bacteria needs to live on. Prostitutes should have a choice. They do have their own choice. See, it is because of some classical issues and challenges, people have been actually displacing from one place to another place. They could be internally displaced persons or internationally displaced persons are concerned. So that's why when you just look into some of the classical examples all over the world, this is what I have already been explained in many countries are concerned. Look at Yemen, civil war, then Russian crisis, especially in Georgia, and war in Chechnya, Iran and Iraq crisis, Palestine issue, and South Korea, North Korea. Look at Indo-Pak, Indo-China, or Sri Lankan in Tamil Nadu, Tamilans in Sri Lanka. So all these things we are witnessing, no matter. Every day they have been actually displacing from one place to another place, no matter. It requires a lot of drill to understand on the basis of obligations in which are shouldered on you. And it is one of the responsibilities on the part of a state should understand all these parameters. Otherwise, the very purpose of maintaining or restoring the international peace and security would be undermined. Of course, no matter. This is one of the observations in which we have been emphasizing at the higher level. And moreover, you know very well, one of the concerns of United Nations organization is to restore or maintain international peace and security assets. That's why we need to have a peace in the society assets. Otherwise, people would be literally crying here and there, and that the state should know why people are actually literally crying, and something has to be looked into. At the end, I must share with you, peace, it does not mean it is an absence of war. It is peace means presence of justice. That justice should be remain on the basis of international human rights law, international humanitarian law, international criminal law, and guiding principles in which they are highly expressive at the international level. If you have got some questions, I'll be able to give an answer to you. So any question from your side?